It actually started when I was much younger. I always tell this to my high school guys in the beginning of the year, which is it's never too early to actually get exposed to the field that you want to go into or that you're thinking about going into. So I'm sure Makar remembers, like, when we were in high school, I would devote, I devoted my sophomore and junior summer to doing science research in like a hospital, in a like clinical setting. And that's how I really realized, and the reason for that was because of the fact that I was thinking about applying to certain programs that once you're in, and if you want to change your profession, then that's it. Forget about it. All those years that you spent in that school were completely lost. So I had to make sure that I really wanted to go ahead and be a doctor. So I spent those 2 summers in high school, which were unbelievable, amazing. I got to interact with patients in a way that I didn't think I would be able to, being that young, and how these patients would just open up to me so effortlessly. It was unbelievable. It was great, and that's how I fell in love with the profession. Um, Aside from that, once I got into the program, I got into this BSMD program. We would always be exposed clinically, and that's how I continued to just love it more and more and more. Now, that's not to say that at certain points I would question whether I want to continue doing this. And anything that's worth anything, you get to that breaking point. But that's not to say that I regret doing this, because I can't imagine myself doing anything else. It's an amazing field. It's rewarding. It's incredibly rewarding, guys. But it's a long road. And that's one thing you guys have to really, really keep in mind. That medical school and like the whole like American medical education system is a marathon. So if you're the impatient type, if you're the type for immediate gratification, you really need to question, because it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of hard work during undergrad. So those business majors, those friends of yours that are business majors, their experience in college is going to be completely different than your experience in undergrad, because you're going to be working your heart out. While those business majors, I mean, I'm sure they're working hard, but just it's intense, and you have to do research during college if you really want to increase your chances. Another thing for you guys that are going into college, it might not be an 8-year plan. It might be a 9-year plan, and a lot of times it is a 9-year plan. You graduate undergrad, and then afterwards you want to build up your resume so that that time that you're really applying to med school, you're there. So a lot of times that's what would happen. They would go ahead and do research and take their MCATs and make sure they get the highest score possible, and then they apply. It's getting harder and harder. It's getting more and more competitive. And the positions after medical school are getting more and more competitive, the residency spots. So what I mean to say here is that I hope this isn't I hope I'm not discouraging you guys. I'm not. But the thing is, I had so many friends of mine, so many close friends of mine, that wanted to do med school. Some of them wanted to do for other reasons. Some of them were the oldest sibling in the family, and they wanted to set an example, so that their parents could go ahead and say, like, you see, your oldest brother's a doctor now, you could do it. But that's just not how it works. And it's unfair sometimes, but you have to take into consideration that it's a hard road. It's very rewarding, but it's for those people who are willing to do it. What's the difference between DO and MD? There's not much difference. There really isn't. MD is the more traditional, degree. It's a doctor of medicine. I mean, like a medical degree. And then DO is a doctor of osteopathic medicine. DO is getting more popular. It's a little less competitive to get into DO school, but it's getting increasingly competitive. And also for residency spots, for the specialty of medicine that you're going to want to get into, it's a little competitive. So let's say if I want to do orthopedic surgery, and let's say I have an MD, like I'm in an MD school, and somebody else is a DO, if my grades are a little better than theirs, chances are I'm probably going to get it just because I have an MD and I have a little better grades. Now, if we have the same grades, it really depends on, and I think Uncle Haney could answer this a little more, it really depends on the type of person, how well they see you fitting in with the rest of the staff in the hospital. But for the most part, it's a little more competitive, and that's why they have residency positions just for DOs. They have certain like DO residency spots just for DOs, so that they could kind of like even out the playing field. But I mean, everybody's first choice is MD, or a lot of people's choices is for MD. Another thing that I didn't mention this, another thing that they mention, or they emphasize in DO school is osteopathy, I think it's called. And it's kind of seeing the body as a whole system, and seeing that, you know, the muscles of the body and, you know, the musculoskeletal system plays a big role in like your symptoms. So so that's another part of it. How much they use that in the clinical field, I don't know, but that's what it is.
Okay, so yeah, we have a few questions. Guys, anybody has questions, please raise your hand. We have a few questions.
I actually think, if I may,
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt at this point. I know there are a lot of questions. We saved this specific panel for the last panel, and people were asking why we did that. Yes, it was strategic because we wanted you to stick around, but also importantly, we knew that there would be a lot of questions specifically for this panel. So we're going to ask them to stick around a little bit longer so that you have a chance informally to hang out, ask questions, talk to them more one-on-one, and maybe do it a little bit more informally and hopefully get more information. Christ, Luke 9, he says, no one who puts their hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom, right? I want to tell you that when you begin your journey, it's a process. All right. Sometimes we start and we get tunnel vision. We say, this is what we're going to do. Okay. Christ was talking about the kingdom. All right. He wasn't talking about your career path. The one thing I want to encourage you is you've heard a lot from these panelists up here. You've heard the previous panel. There's a lot of other things that you were exposed to, that you were thinking about. The thing that I want to encourage you to do is set your eyes on in a certain direction based on, maybe if I could remind you of that first lecture you heard, that first talk you heard. Think about what your interests are. Think about what's been peaked today, what you've heard today. Ask some more questions and set your eyes moving in a direction. But if the plow is not moving, that tells you something. Something's wrong, okay? We heard someone talking about how the plow wasn't moving when they were pursuing pre-med, okay? So set your eyes in a certain direction, but be a little bit flexible and understand that maybe that's not what's for you.